When Justin Bieber sat down one quiet evening to talk openly about how the waves of hate comments from Twitch and social media had affected his mental health, the world paused for a moment because beneath all the lights and applause there was always a human heart beating fragile yet strong, and that honesty became the start of something deeply moving as he spoke about how even someone who has achieved everything, the fame, the music, the legacy, could still feel the sting of negativity. It reminded people everywhere that words carry power, and that behind every username, there's a story being shaped by what we say or type. And Justin's confession wasn't about seeking sympathy. It was about shedding light on a truth so many live with in silence: the pressure, the scrutiny, the endless cycle of validation and doubt that comes from existing in a digital world that never sleeps. And as he shared how he sometimes felt weighed down by the relentless commentary that questioned his worth or mocked his faith or doubted his intentions, it became clear that the pain he felt was something universal. It wasn't just about fame, it was about humanity. And in that raw vulnerability, Justin opened the door for others to reflect, to pause and realize that empathy matters more than engagement, that compassion should trend higher than controversy. And while his words echoed through the online universe, he reminded fans that it was music that always brought him back to balance, music that helped him breathe again when the noise got too loud. And that's when his story took on a new layer, because every song he's written, from the earliest covers on YouTube to the deeply personal tracks on Purpose and Justice, carried fragments of the same boy who dreamed of connection. And now, as a man, he uses that dream to create healing. And from that point, the documentary widens beyond one voice into the greater narrative of what it means to be a celebrity in a connected world where the stage is infinite and the spotlight never fades. And yet within that pressure, many have found their peace by turning pain into art. Selena Gomez, his once muse and forever friend, walked a similar path, turning heartbreak and health struggles into an anthem of empowerment, her story reminding millions that strength is soft and recovery is not a straight line. And Taylor Swift, another figure of reinvention, built her empire by learning to rewrite her story every time the world tried to narrate it, for her transforming gossip into poetry and controversy into cultural commentary, proving that power comes from persistence. And Beyoncé, standing tall in grace, has taught generations that silence can be strength, that control of your voice and your image is the ultimate freedom. And as we weave through these tales, we see that Justin's moment of openness about hate comments is not isolated. It's part of a global conversation where artists everywhere are using honesty as a bridge to their audiences, not as weakness, but as wisdom. Because vulnerability is not a fracture, it's an invitation. And as Justin reflects on the countless nights scrolling through harsh words, he now knows that the same platforms that can spread cruelty can also spread kindness. They can connect people who understand, who care, who uplift. And that realization has become part of his healing journey, one that he shares with Hailey. His anchor, his constant reminder that real life happens off-screen, in laughter, in prayer, in peace. And while she stands beside him, reminding him of his worth, he continues to evolve into an artist who is no longer defined by opinions, but by authenticity. And that authenticity resonates beyond him, reaching artists worldwide like BTS, who have spoken about pressure and burnout, yet continue to lead with unity and positivity, or Billie Eilish, who turned her experiences with body image and fame into art that liberates others from the same chains, or Shawn Mendes, who once admitted to struggling with anxiety but learned to use his voice not just to sing, but to speak truth. And all of these stories together form a chorus of courage, a reminder that even in the digital age where fame feels like fire, it can also light the path for others. And Justin's choice to confront his feelings publicly, to own them instead of hide them, shows growth. It shows evolution. It shows that the boy who once feared losing himself to fame has found his way back through faith and honesty. And when he says he's learning to let go of hate and hold on to love, it's not a line, it's a lifestyle. And that is why his fans stay. They see not perfection, but progression. And that progression becomes proof that no matter how many voices rise against you, the only one that matters is the voice inside reminding you to keep going. And from that truth, the documentary shifts from darkness to light, showing that there's beauty in imperfection, and that sometimes our most painful chapters become the most inspiring to others, because they reveal that everyone, even those who seem untouchable, battles their own storms and survives. And as the music swells and we transition into Justin reflecting on his roots, the small-town boy who sang on street corners dreaming of an audience, We remember that the dream was never about fame. It was about connection. It was about making people feel seen and heard. And now, years later, that dream continues, but on a different level, one rooted in purpose rather than approval, one guided by peace rather than pressure. And that is what makes Justin Bieber's journey not just a celebrity story, but a human one. And as he stands at this new stage of his life, looking beyond hate into hope, he becomes a living reminder that the heart of art is empathy and the heart of empathy is courage. And as Justin continued to speak with honesty about the toll of online hate, the room seemed to shift the energy lighter but also deeper, as if his words reached beyond the camera into the hearts of everyone who had ever felt misunderstood or judged unfairly, because hate comments don't just wound celebrities. They wound anyone trying to express themselves, and Justin admitted that sometimes he would read them in moments of weakness, wondering if the people writing them forgot that he was human, and that raw admission broke the illusion that fame protects you from pain, because in reality it magnifies it. Yet he found strength in realizing that he could choose how to respond, not with anger, but with empathy. And it's that same perspective that made so many people respect him more than ever, because instead of building walls, he chose to build bridges. And in this era of constant criticism, that act alone is revolutionary. And while he learned to navigate the storm, he began to appreciate the quiet power of kindness, something he practiced not only in his words, but in his work through charity efforts that often went unnoticed, like supporting mental health programs in youth shelters or funding music initiatives for underprivileged kids around the world, proving that purpose grows when ego fades. And that realization connected him with other artists walking similar paths, like Lady Gaga, who has long spoken about her mental health struggles, turning her pain into advocacy through the Born This Way Foundation, or like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who uses his platform to uplift and inspire millions, showing that strength is not the absence of emotion, but the willingness to feel and to rise again. Or like Zendaya, who navigates fame with quiet grace, using her influence to promote self-acceptance and representation for young fans worldwide. And these stories create a global tapestry of courage, where every thread tells us that fame may magnify your struggles, but it can also amplify your voice. And Justin began to understand that maybe the negativity he faced on Twitch or social media wasn't just meant to test him, but to teach him how to transcend it, and to remind the world that behind every post, every performance, there is a person still learning, still growing. And Hailey became a vital part of that growth, reminding him daily to disconnect from the noise and reconnect with what matters. Family, faith, and friendship she encouraged him to ground himself in. Small joys like walks with their dog, quiet dinners at home, journaling, gratitude lists before bed, the kind of habits that keep your soul steady when the world spins too fast. And her own experience with public scrutiny gave her empathy, not bitterness. And that shared understanding bonded them even more deeply. They became each other's calm amid the chaos, and their relationship turned into a living example that love can be both sanctuary and mirror, revealing where we hurt and helping us heal. And their journey resonates because it's not perfect, it's real. And that reality is what draws people in. And as Justin reflected on how the digital age creates both connection and comparison, he expressed concern for the younger generation of artists coming up in this hyper-connected world where validation is often mistaken for value. He wanted to remind them that talent grows in silence, that art is born in stillness, and that fame should never replace fulfillment. And his honesty made waves because it wasn't performative. It was pastoral. It came from someone who had lived the highs and lows, and now sought peace instead of popularity. And when he talked about Twitch specifically, he explained how sometimes he would join streams just to connect with fans casually, to feel normal, to have fun. But even there, the occasional hateful comments would sneak in, cutting through the joy like static. Yet instead of letting it ruin the experience, he chose to respond with humor or compassion, sometimes even reaching out privately to let fans know he understood their pain. And that shift in energy changed everything. Because when you meet hate with understanding, you disarm it. You take away its power. And that is what Justin was learning to do, not just online, but in life. And as the documentary widens again, we see this mirrored across global culture, where other figures have turned criticism into compassion, like Harry Styles, who faced ridicule for his fashion choices, yet continued to redefine masculinity with grace and confidence, or like Rihanna, who faced endless commentary on her personal life, yet rose above it to become a global entrepreneur, philanthropist, and new mother, showing that resilience is the ultimate form of beauty, and these parallels make Justin's story part of a much larger movement where celebrities use transparency as a tool for transformation, and the public begins to see that behind the glam, there's grit. Behind the fame, there's faith, and while Justin once felt broken by the pressure, now he uses it as motivation to create music that heals, to speak at events that empower, and to be a light for those drowning in the darkness of digital hate, and it's beautiful to see that. Growth not just in his music but in his demeanor and the calm way he now carries himself in interviews, and the patience he shows when questions get invasive, in the way he chooses silence over shade and gratitude over grievance. And Hailey often mirrors that same grace, choosing positivity, even when her name trends for the wrong reasons. Both of them learning that peace is not found in approval, but in acceptance, and that message extends far beyond their marriage. It's a universal truth for anyone navigating modern life where opinions are loud but truth is quiet. And as the documentary voiceover softens, we're reminded that every person watching has their own version of hate comments, their own version of pressure, their own invisible battle. And if Justin's story teaches us anything, it's that you can acknowledge the pain without becoming it. You can feel the weight without letting it define you. And you can turn every hateful word into a reason to love louder, to live kinder, and to believe stronger. And in that moment, the story ceases to be about one man. It becomes about all of us learning to be more human in a digital world. And as Justin looked back on those long nights scrolling through Twitch, reading words that felt colder than the screen he stared at, he began to understand something deeper about people, that often those who spread hate are the ones who need healing the most. And that thought softened his heart. Instead of hardening it, he started praying for those who insulted him. Instead of reacting to them, he began to imagine their pain, their loneliness, their misunderstanding, and this new perspective became part of his peace, because forgiveness freed him in a way that fame never could, and that forgiveness also inspired him to create music that carried that same message of compassion. Songs that reminded listeners that everyone is fighting unseen battles, and in that creative process, he found clarity. He discovered that turning negativity into art is one of the purest forms of transformation, because it allows pain to be recycled into something beautiful. And that is exactly what artists across the globe have been doing, from Adele pouring heartbreak into melody, to Post Malone turning vulnerability into verses from K-pop groups like BTS, spreading messages of self-love to African artists like Burna Boy blending resilience with rhythm, creating anthems that unite rather than divide. And Justin feels connected to this worldwide wave of truth-telling through art, because he knows that music is medicine, not just for those who listen, but for those who make it. And as he continued to speak about his Twitch experiences, he mentioned that sometimes he would play around online just to have fun, to share his love of gaming, to feel normal again, but that the comment sections could turn dark quickly. Yet even in those spaces, he realized there were people defending him, standing up for kindness, reminding others that he was human, and those moments meant everything, because they reminded him that love always exists louder than hate, and he learned to focus on that love, to feed the energy that fed him rather than the one that drained him. And it's that shift in focus that helped him evolve from reaction to reflection, and reflection led to gratitude. Gratitude for the fans who stayed by him since the beginning, for the ones who grew up with him, for the ones who forgave him when he stumbled, for the ones who saw the light through the layers of fame and pressure. And when he talks about gratitude now, it's not a cliche, it's a lifestyle. You can see it in his posture and his voice, and the way he looks at the crowd during concerts, as if he's thanking them silently with every song. And Hailey often says that what people don't see is the amount of peace Justin has found through giving back, how he spends hours visiting youth centers, talking to young musicians, or supporting global charities quietly without cameras, because he knows that the best kind of fame is the kind that lifts others, and that humility makes him different. It makes him real, and that realness connects him to a larger lineage of stars who use their success to heal, not to boast. People like Angelina Jolie, who turned her spotlight into activism for refugees, or like Keanu Reeves, who leads with gentleness and generosity, or like Shakira, who builds schools in Colombia for children who need opportunity, and all of them share the same thread of purpose, and that purpose is what keeps them grounded. And Justin's growing advocacy for mental health continues to inspire millions, especially those who have felt silenced by the toxicity of online culture. He tells them that it's okay to log off, that peace is more valuable than presence, that validation from strangers cannot define the value of your heart, and those Words have become almost like digital therapy for fans struggling with self-image and anxiety. And through his openness, he has turned social media into a space of learning where he shares devotionals, reflections, moments of stillness, reminding people that fame may fade, but faith remains. And his story naturally intertwines with others who are redefining what fame means today. Artists like Selena Gomez, who uses her brand Rare Beauty to advocate for self-acceptance and emotional honesty, or like Billie Eilish, who continues to speak about body neutrality and the importance of mental well-being, or like Harry Styles, who encourages authenticity and emotional freedom. And this global movement toward openness has made modern celebrity culture more human than ever, because now stars are not untouchable gods. They are mirrors reflecting our shared humanity. And Justin's Twitch experience, though, painful, became one of those defining moments that transformed him from performer to teacher, from star to storyteller. And through that transformation, he became more relatable because everyone has faced rejection or harsh words that linger. But Justin's story shows that what defines you is not the insult, but the insight you gain from it. And through that lens, even the hate becomes useful. It becomes a reminder to stay kind to yourself, to stay real, to remember that every storm passes and leaves wisdom behind. And as the documentary drifts into reflection scenes, we imagine Justin walking through quiet hallways, guitar in hand, humming melodies under soft light. The world outside loud, but his inner world calm. And in that calm, he finds clarity about what truly matters. Family, friends, music, faith, and those 4 pillars keep him upright no matter how the digital wind blows. And when he shares his story with younger artists, he tells them that boundaries are strength, that not every opinion deserves space in your heart, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is turn off the screen and look at the sky. And that advice resonates because it comes from someone who lived it, someone who once felt consumed by criticism, but learned to rise through reflection and love. And that rise becomes not just his story, but everyone's story, who has ever been misunderstood or attacked and still chose to keep their heart open. And as the music builds under his words, the documentary transitions toward hope, showing fans holding up signs that say, "You saved me," or "Thank you for being real," reminding us that when one person dares to speak their truth, it gives permission for others to do the same. And that is the true magic of Justin Bieber's openness. It creates connection in a disconnected world. And as Justin continued to evolve both as a man and as an artist, the way he viewed social media changed forever, because he no longer saw it as a place to prove himself, but as a space to share purpose and connect through truth. And that shift made his online presence more peaceful, more intentional, more human. He would post moments of gratitude, messages of faith, snippets of studio sessions, and fans could feel the energy shift from performance to authenticity. And that transformation inspired others in the industry to do the same, to use their platforms not for perfection, but for progress. And this wave of positivity began to shape the digital landscape in subtle but powerful ways, because when major artists start choosing compassion over competition, the culture follows. And in that new light, Justin became something more than a musician. He became a mentor of mindfulness, a reminder that fame does not define happiness, and that peace must be protected. And his ability to share that message came from years of learning through pain, from understanding that even the loudest applause cannot drown out inner doubt unless you confront it and transform it. And Hailey often reflected in interviews that she admired Justin's willingness to be open about his emotions, because it helped dismantle the stigma around men, showing vulnerability in a world that often rewards toughness over tenderness. She would say that true strength is in softness, and Justin embodied that by speaking openly about therapy, meditation, and prayer, and that honesty inspired fans everywhere to take their mental health seriously, to ask for help, to realize that healing is not weakness but wisdom. And across the world, other artists began echoing similar messages, creating a global movement of self-awareness and emotional education. Singers like Demi Lovato, who turned addiction and trauma into advocacy, or like Lizzo, who radiates self-love while reminding fans that joy is a form of resistance, or like BTS, who built campaigns around the message, "Love yourself," encouraging millions to find acceptance within. And that energy flows through this documentary, like light weaving through every story, reminding viewers that vulnerability is universal, and that everyone from the biggest star to the quietest listener battles insecurity and seeks peace. And Justin's Twitch story becomes symbolic of this larger truth. because what began as hate comments turned into a healing journey that would ripple across generations and inspire countless others to look inward instead of outward for validation. And as the camera follows Justin through studios and stages, fans see how this new mindset shapes his music, the melodies deeper, the lyrics raw yet hopeful. Each song carrying a message of renewal and redemption, and his new creative era becomes not about chart success, but about connection, about creating soundtracks for healing, for reflection, for faith. And as he performs, these songs live. You can feel that he is not performing to be adored, but to be understood. And that connection between artist and audience becomes sacred, because it turns concerts into collective healing moments where thousands of people sing about love and forgiveness together, creating a sound bigger than hate, bigger than judgment. And Hailey stands by him through it all, grounding him, reminding him that his worth is not measured in numbers, but in the quiet impact he leaves on hearts. And that partnership radiates a sense of calm to fans who often write letters thanking them for showing that love can be both strong and gentle, both glamorous and grounded, and their bond becomes part of the wider story of couples in the spotlight, who choose unity over drama and privacy over performance, like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who use humor and love to navigate fame, or like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, who turn transparency into strength sharing, both laughter and loss with honesty. And through these modern love stories, the world learns that being real is more powerful than being perfect, and that authenticity heals more than image ever could. And Justin's growth inspires new projects outside music collaborations, in fashion, philanthropy, and mental health awareness campaigns that aim to provide safe spaces online for youth to express themselves without fear of ridicule, because he understands better than anyone that creative expression should never be punished by cruelty, and these projects echo globally, connecting with similar movements led by stars like Zendaya promoting emotional literacy, or Harry Styles supporting kindness campaigns, or Billie Eilish speaking about eco-consciousness and mental well. Being all of them forming a quiet revolution against toxicity, a generation of artists who believe that fame can coexist with empathy, and that influence is not about control, but contribution. And Justin, at the center of this evolution, stands as a reminder that no matter how dark things get, there is always light waiting on the other side if you choose to see it, and that light shines brightest when shared with others. And as we drift deeper into this chapter, the focus turns toward the fans who have grown alongside him, the ones who once idolized the teenager with the swoop haircut, and now admire the man who speaks about mindfulness and fatherhood and faith. And these fans see themselves in his journey, because they too have matured, faced heartbreak, endured online judgment, and learned to value peace over popularity. And that shared evolution creates a rare kind of connection between star and audience. One built not on fantasy, but on familiarity, on shared experience and emotional honesty. And this new wave of celebrity storytelling has transformed how we engage with fame as a society, because now more people understand that celebrities are not escape. They are examples. They show us what happens when you survive pressure, when you turn pain into passion, and when you keep creating, even when the world doubts you. And as the background music softens, we see Justin sitting quietly strumming his guitar, the light warm around him, his eyes peaceful and his voice calm as he speaks about choosing love every day as a discipline, not a reaction. And he says that maybe the point of everything, the music, the fame, the struggle, is to learn to love without condition, to give without expectation, and to forgive without hesitation. And in those simple words lies the essence of his growth, the message that has defined this chapter of his life, that compassion heals faster than criticism, and that connection will always outlast chaos, and with every breath he takes on stage or off, he proves that truth. And as the story draws toward its quiet climax, the camera fades from the bright stage lights to the soft glow of a sunrise, symbolizing new beginnings. Because Justin Bieber's journey has never been about perfection, it has always been about persistence. And in this stillness, he reflects on how far he has come from the small boy singing on YouTube to the man who now uses his voice to heal himself and others. And the hate that once echoed through Twitch or Instagram no longer carries weight, because he learned that hate is not a reflection of truth, but of pain. And once you understand that, you stop reacting with anger and start responding with empathy. And that is the core of his message as he speaks. Not as a celebrity, but as a human being, saying that the comments which once broke him now remind him of the importance of kindness. Because if someone feels the need to hurt others online, they are likely hurting inside themselves. And that perspective has become his strength, a kind of emotional alchemy. turning negativity into understanding and that understanding into art. And as he continues to evolve, he wants his legacy not to be about fame or records, but about how he made people feel, about how he helped them see that vulnerability can coexist with victory. And in that vision, he stands among others who share the same mission, like Selena Gomez, using her platform to talk about mental wellness and inner peace through her rare beauty initiatives, or like Lady Gaga, who built entire foundations to support youth mental health, reminding them they are born this way, beautiful and worthy, or like The Weeknd, who channels isolation into creative brilliance, proving that darkness can still produce light. And as we look at this constellation of stars across the world, it becomes clear that the modern generation of artists is not defined by charts or scandals, but by how they use their voices to uplift, to inspire, to heal. And Justin's contribution shines in that galaxy of change because he turned one of the hardest chapters of his life, the endless criticism, the public missteps, the inner turmoil, into a message that says, keep going no matter what. And this is what resonates with fans across continents, across cultures, from the streets of Los Angeles to the neighborhoods of London, to the small towns of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. His story transcends borders, because it is the story of every person who has ever felt misunderstood, or unwanted, or judged. And through his openness, people see that even when millions love you, it only takes one cruel word to wound you, but it also takes one kind word to heal you. And that is why kindness must always be louder than hate. And this truth ripples outward into the entire creative universe, inspiring not just musicians, but actors, athletes, influencers, and ordinary people to use their presence online with more compassion and responsibility. And the documentary moves through montages of these artists working behind the scenes, giving back, contributing to causes that matter. Harry Styles promoting kindness and equality. Zendaya mentoring young artists. Leonardo DiCaprio fighting for the planet. Taylor Swift donating to education. And all of it loops back to the same heartbeat. That fame without purpose is hollow, and success without soul is fleeting. And Justin now stands as a man who understands that his greatest stage is not a concert, but his life itself. How he lives, how he treats people, how he chooses to love and forgive. And in that maturity, he has found something unshakable, a peace that no headline can disrupt. And Hailey plays a quiet role in this evolution. Her calm faith steadying him, reminding him that sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do in a world obsessed with noise is to choose silence, reflection, and grace. And their love story becomes an emblem of modern devotion. Not perfect, but patient, not dramatic, but enduring. Built on prayer, communication, and growth. And as Justin talks about his daily practices of gratitude, journaling, meditation, and worship, he says that these habits are not about image, but about survival, about finding stillness in a storm. And his words touch something deep because they show that healing is not a destination, but a daily choice. And that mental health is not linear, but layered. And as he reflects on his experiences with therapy, with learning boundaries, with letting go of people-pleasing, he admits that freedom comes when you stop trying to control perception and start honoring reality. And that realization has set him free, and his fans notice that glow, the peace in his eyes, the maturity in his interviews, the gratitude in his songs, and they celebrate that evolution because they, too, have grown through him, and the energy of this transformation reaches beyond the entertainment world, touching teachers, doctors, parents, teenagers, everyone who once compared themselves to celebrities, now realizing that everyone struggles, everyone breaks, everyone rebuilds, and that in itself is healing to know you're not alone. And as the documentary nears its end, the camera pans across the faces of fans around the world, singing along to Ghost or Peaches or Lonely, their voices merging into one ocean of emotion, echoing back the message that even in loneliness there is light, and even in chaos there is connection. And that's the beauty of Justin Bieber's legacy. It's not the awards or records, but the emotional resonance, the shared humanity that transcends fame. And as we look back at his early days, the awkward teenage years, the controversies, the comebacks, the redemption arcs, we see that each stage of his life was a verse in a much larger song, a song about resilience, forgiveness, and love. And now, as the final notes fade, Justin stands quietly in a simple studio, strumming his guitar, whispering gratitude for every lesson learned, every person who stayed, every challenge that shaped him. And in that silence, you can almost hear the heartbeat of hope. Because that's what his story represents. Not just survival, but transformation. And that transformation invites everyone watching to reflect on their own journeys, to see that they too can turn hate into healing, pain into power, and fear into faith. And in that realization, the film ends not with applause, but with peace. Because the message is clear that no matter how loud the world becomes, the soft voice of self-compassion will always guide you home. And so Justin Bieber closes this chapter not as the pop prince of the past, but as the man of purpose who learned that the most powerful comeback is inner peace. And as the credits roll with his song playing softly in the background, fans around the world feel inspired to breathe deeper, to be kinder to themselves and to others, and to remember that love will always outlast hate, and that is the truest victory of all. If you love celebrity stories, Hollywood news, inspirational journeys, and behind-the-scenes moments that feel personal, hit like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected with more positive and emotional celebrity documentaries.